Did you know after the FIFA World Cup and the Olympic Games that the Rugby World Cup is the third largest sporting event that takes place every 4 years? And as a result of that, it's a huge investment opportunity. I'm going to talk about that more in this video. G'day everyone, and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Mexico. Now, a lot of you will know, if you've been watching my videos, that in addition to loving the games of rugby and analysing and giving my opinion on those, I'm a very big advocate for the growth of the game and the future of the game, and looking out for all the good things that can happen in our game across the world. Now in this video I'm going to be talking about one of the things that I think is inevitable, and that is the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, known as the PIF, coming in to be a potential sponsor of rugby across the world. Now, if you're not too familiar with the setup of how things work in Saudi Arabia, they have a sovereign wealth fund that's worth in excess of $5 trillion today. And some of that money has been allocated to the public investment fund. In fact, billions of dollars have been allocated to that. And that is helping Saudi Arabia look and work towards its vision of the future. And if you take some time, they have a very clear vision where they want their country to go. And it's in fact called Vision 2030. It's inevitable, they feel, that oil is going to run out one day and that their economy needs to diversify. And as a result of that, the Crown Prince has decided to make a major statement in the world of sport by investing in all kinds of different sport over the last number of years and also into the future. But this video is really about the investment opportunity that's there for World Rugby and what could actually happen as a result of that. Now, we all know over the last few years that the Saudi Arabians have been investing enormously in all kinds of different sport across the world. And if we start off looking at Formula One, their investment in Formula One has been very, very large indeed. In fact, over the last few years, they've invested over $660 million into Formula One. They've started their own Formula One Grand Prix. The first one took place on December the 5th, 2021. And since then, they've also invested in the McLaren group of automobile group, an investment that was over 550 million euros. Now, if you're a golf fan like me, you'll also know that we had Live Golf come along a couple of years ago with Greg Norman, the great Australian major winner, who was appointed as the CEO on behalf of the Public Investment Fund in Saudi Arabia to set up Live Golf around the world. And amongst a lot of controversy and public torment, Greg Norman has gone along and done that as well. And as a result of that, the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour have sat down late last year with the LIV Golf Group and the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia and realised that it's inevitable. There needs to be a global golf tour and it needs to be heavily invested in. Now, the Saudi Arabians are looking at putting $2 billion into the sport of golf, and that's going to create something absolutely fantastic, what all golfers and all spectators have wanted over the years, and that's to have a full-time global golf tour. Now, when it comes to football, or soccer as some people call it, there's also been a huge investment by the Saudis in that sport. They ended up buying the Newcastle football team in the English Premier League for £391 million, and they've also set up the Saudi Pro League, where they've got players like Cristiano Ronaldo and many others to go over there and play. They've so far invested $1 billion in players alone to come over and play in that league in Saudi Arabia. So their investments in soccer are very, very large as well. They've also been nominated as the host of the 2034 FIFA World Cup, which will take place in Saudi Arabia, and that's another major statement in the sport of football that the Saudi Arabians have made. In addition to those sports, we've also seen the investments coming in the sports of boxing and MMA wrestling as well. It's been very interesting in the boxing world because we've seen a real turnaround since the Saudis have got involved in the boxing community. And the turnaround that I talk about is finally we're starting to see some really big fights, great cards taking place in Saudi Arabia. And prior to them coming in investing in the sport, it seems as though the managers and those that were responsible for these boxers weren't getting the job done, and they weren't giving us, the sports fans, the games or the boxing matches that we wanted to actually see. Now, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud wants to make sure that the Saudi economy is generating at least 2.5% of its GDP from sports related investments and revenue by the year 2030, and he's definitely on track because they've already exceeded the 1% mark in the last year. So a fantastic effort there. It just shows when a country puts its vision and its focus and its money in the right place, they can get the outcomes that they're looking for. Now, what does all this mean potentially for rugby? Well, with the Rugby World Cup now generating more and more interest across the world, and with some of the bigger competitions being of more interest, there's an opportunity for Saudi Arabia to come in and take a major investment in the sport of rugby. Now, why would they do that, and what's holding them back at the moment? Well, potentially what's holding them back is they're looking at cricket and tennis at the moment, and in particular with cricket, they're about to buy into, if not take over, the Indian Premier League, which is going to give a huge investment of around $5 billion to that cricket league, and of course it's going to turn it into a premier cricket event across the world, and it's going to be a great long-term investment for the Saudis in that particular sport. On the tennis front, in June of last year, the ATP Tour Chief Executive Andrea Golzini sat down with the PIF directors and talked about the PIF coming into tennis and investing in the sport of tennis. At the moment, they're trying to invest and take over the Miami Open, played in Miami each year, and the Madrid Open, played in Madrid. These two tournaments are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but they are looking at the WTA as well as the ATP, and it could be really interesting to see what happens in the coming months as the tennis world sits down with the PIF to see how they can integrate their investment into the sport. Now, this is something that's quite interesting about the strategic way that this is being done. It's not about just coming over and dividing and conquer. It's about how their investment can work best for that sport to grow it across the world. And if you look at some of the transcripts that have happened between the ATP Tour and the PIF, you'll see that the investments are looking at the media exposure, data, technical areas of the game, all these things where tennis want to invest in that area, but they don't necessarily have all the funds to be able to do that. So this is where the PIF can come in and invest in a major way and help that particular sport go forward. So after cricket and tennis this year, there could be a big opportunity for the PIF to focus on rugby and make a potential offer to get involved in World Rugby, and I think this would be a fantastic thing. As many of us have talked about, not only in my videos but across other YouTube channels talking about rugby, there's a problem in a lot of the club rugby around the world. There's also a problem in terms of grassroots and domestic rugby in different countries, and this could be addressed by a huge financial investment into the sport by the PIF. So I think a PIF investment into the world of rugby would be very welcome, first of all, not only at World Cup level but also at grassroots rugby across the world. And if the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia sat down with rugby federations from across the world, it could actually address the issues that exist in each of the countries. And as have many of you commented on my previous videos about what's going on in your country with rugby, some of you say, oh, it's no problem, everything's going really well, we don't need to change what's going on at the moment. And others of you have said that rugby really needs a big shake-up in our country. And then outside of all the main rugby playing countries, we've got all the smaller rugby playing nations that need investment and development to help them go forward. And the likes of the Pacific Island teams, as well as the Eastern European teams, the South American teams, they all require massive investment. And if it's not going to come from their own country in the way of government support or sports lotteries, then it needs to come from somewhere else. And this is where I think the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia can really make a positive impact on the sport of rugby across the world. Saudi Arabia and their investment in sport is not going away. It's going to become something that's more and more prevalent across the world in the next decade or so. So not only should we get used to it, we should actually turn it into a positive and see how we can use that opportunity to advance our great game of rugby. Now, I'd really like to hear your comments on this one. Do you think it's inevitable that the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund is going to get involved in the sport of rugby? If they do, what do you think that's going to look like? Do you think they'll start off with the World Cup and putting major investment into that? Or do you think they'll look at some of the major competitions around the world and put their money behind that? I'd really like to know your views on this one in the comment. And if there was major investment coming into the game across the world, how could it be used in your country? Tell me in the comments. I'd really like to hear from you. So it's just 1 week now until the Six Nations gets underway, and getting pretty excited about that. I'm going to be giving you my previews for every game, as well as my full-on analysis and detail after the games as well. So make sure you stick around for that. And the best way of doing it, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and give me your input about the Public Investment Fund, the opportunities of investing from Saudi Arabia. That's what this video has been all about. Okay, I'll be back soon with some more content from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Until then, stay safe, stay well, everybody. And until next time, bye for now.